My name is Roy Pryse. I was in World War II and the Korean War. I'd be drafted, so I decided I would join the Air Force. And so I enlisted in the Air Force in 1942 for the Air Force to give me a 2-year deferment. I was going to the University of Cincinnati, and I thought 2 years I could finish that program and get my degree as mechanical engineer. I was called to active duty in January 1944 at the university to become first to get my commission, and then also become an aeronautical engineer. And they sent me down to San Antonio, Texas, where there was a big air repair depot. And I thought, oh great, I'm set for the war. You know, here in this depot I could repair these airplanes. Well, that wasn't the case. And we were supposed to go down there and take a course in communications. I was supposed to be studying cryptography and message center work. They put me on a ship that was going to Guam, and I spent most of my time on Guam. It turned out on Guam I was to be a supply officer. I had no training in that. I had a lot of training in engineering and how to repair these airplanes, and cryptography. But they decided they needed an officer to take care of this supply depot. And in that period of time, while I was there on Guam, I had Japanese prisoners of war assigned to me to work for me in the supply depot. And that was an interesting experience, of course, because they couldn't speak any English. There was about 6 or 8 of them that were assigned to me personally. And they reported to me every day. Went home every night at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, just like a job. I didn't have a lot for them to do. I was trying to remember how I got connected with this artist who painted this picture for me, or not painted it, but drew this picture for me. But he somehow explained he wanted a linen handkerchief. He held up his own handkerchief probably, and then he said, "I will draw you a picture." This is what I'm talking about. It's not the best picture in the world, art-wise, on today's standards, but it was something that became a memento for me, and a remembrance. I don't even know who he was, incidentally. He didn't sign it.
If you want to talk about any combat, if you didn't
No, I was not in any combat, fortunately, and when I enlisted in the Air Force, I thought, well, what is the best service for me to be enlisted in, and what would I be interested in? And so that's how I chose the Air Force over the Navy or the Army.
What things were like when you came back home?
Well, of course, I was married. We had no place to stay, and I had no job. Much like the veterans that are coming home nowadays, they have no job. Went to an unemployment agency and said, "Here I am. What can you do with me?" They sent me to a company in downtown Cincinnati, and I worked for them for 30 years or so. We built chemical equipment, like heat exchangers and towers that you might see at a chemical plant, at DuPont or at Union Carbide or maybe even Procter & Gamble.
What was the food like during the war?
Well, it was horrendous initially. When I went to Columbus, Ohio, to get my initial introduction to military life. I just couldn't get over the food. I mean, I was used to my mother's cooking.
Yeah.
So, but it turned out much better after I got my commission, of course.
And duty, what was your biggest fear?
Well, my biggest, naturally, in the supply depot there at Guam, I had no fear. But I mean, even though I had Japanese prisoners of war working for me, they were all nice guys. And, I treated them as well as I could. The one time when I was on Guam, I did have some fear because the barracks there were just Quonset huts, and they're rounded metal buildings, and the men who were living in them used to do their own laundry, and they'd hang their laundry in between on clotheslines. And so, but and this is right after the war, and I don't think these guys on Guam knew that the war was over. The Japanese were up in the hills and around the camp, around where we were living, and they would come down at night and shoot at the laundry hanging
Really?
hanging there. So that bothered me a little bit, and then I was an officer of the day one particular day, which meant that I was in charge of seeing that everything was, if there was anything happened in the camp, I was the first one to be notified. But that particular night, I was supposed to go out on patrol. So myself and my enlisted driver, and so we were in a Jeep. I had a sidearm, and he did too. But then we, in the dark, we drove up a mountain around us. I don't know where he took me, but I was a little apprehensive that particular time. The only fear I had was, I guess, at that particular time.
What did he do for entertainment?
Well, the USO always brought in shows and movies, outdoor movies. We sat on a big screen like the drive-in theaters were here. You guys may or may not know about them. After Guam, I also did a lot of swimming at the beach.
What did you think of the other soldiers and officers and everybody?
Well, I liked them all.
Yeah.
But of course, we always have the officers' club to go to in the evenings or go to eat. And everything was very cordial. When I came back, I know that I had a terminal leave, and then I joined the Officers Reserve Corps and stayed as an inactive officer for a number of years, and then I decided that the Korean War came about in the 50s, and so I left the World War II service in 1946, so I had a few years to work. And I went back to this job that I got. And in the early 50s, when the Korean War broke out, and I thought, well, maybe I should do something else. An air control and warning squadron. Their job at that particular time was to go to Korea, get on the front lines, and tell the people in the back at the airfields that we got incoming. Because they could see it on their radar screens. The squadron was activated. Why? Of course, I went with them, and then after I was, we went to, I guess it was South Carolina. So after a couple of weeks there, there was a message, an order came down from the 2nd Air Force that I was to be moved, plucked out of that squadron and sent to England. And I was assigned to an Air Force, a Royal Air Force base, and there I became an air installations officer. I was part of a squadron who took care of the airfield, and this is what I did the entire time I was over there. Fortunately, I was able to bring my wife, and I had 2 children at the time.
Oh.
She was able to come with me.
Well, that's nice.
Be with me in England. So it was a fond remembrance.
Yeah.
For my end-to-end my military career.